When she embraces, your heart turns to stone. She comes at night when you are all alone, and when she whispers, your blood shall run cold. You better run before she finds you. Auril is the goddess of winter and of the cold. She is known by many names, including the Cold Goddess, the Queen of Cold and Frost, the Queen of Frozen Tears, the Frost Maiden, Brittle Maiden, Frost Sprite Queen, Lady Frostkiss, Lady Icekiss, Stormbringer, Sovereign of Summer's Lost, General of Winter's War, Winter's Womb, and Ice Dawn. She works to extinguish warmth, light, and hope from the world until there is nothing left but a frozen wasteland as cold as her icy heart. Auril takes on several different forms to best suit her dark purposes. The first, and her most commonly seen, is known as the Frost Maiden, an attractive woman made of living ice, around whom frost swirls and gathers. The second, her avatar of pride, is known as Ice Dawn, and it is a crowned, floating figure fully concealed beneath spiked and hooked armor which is made of ice. And she glides silently through the howling winter winds. Her aspect of terror is known as the Cold Crone, a 7-foot-tall, hunched-over winter beast sporting wolf-like fur, goat-like horns, powerful arms ending in razor talons, and the head of an owl topped by twisted horns. Her form of alien beauty is known as the Brittle Maiden, or as Lady Icekiss, a 10-foot-tall feminine figure made of ice that cracks and sprouts frozen blades at odd angles as she moves, which break off and shatter as those vicious knives extend too far. All the while her eyes burn with a blue light from beneath a cloak of mist. Finally, her most inscrutable form is known as Winter's Womb, or as the Queen of Frozen Tears by her most devoted cultists. It is a hovering 3-foot-tall diamond of ice, radiating cold, while her voice echoes forth from its glowing heart. Auril was once a member of a select group of fearsome deities known as the Gods of Fury, beside Talos the Destroyer, Malar the Beast Lord, and Umberlee the Queen of the Sea. Seeking to cover the world in ice, the Frost Maiden sent her followers to do battle against the genies who rule the heated lands close to the equator, and she worked her cold magic to freeze the deserts. Extending her power further and further south, Auril began to freeze the ocean solid, slowly devouring the domains of her ally Umberlee. Punishing betrayal harshly, the other gods of the Fury fell upon the Queen of Cold and drove her back, forcing Auril to retreat to the northernmost, coldest regions of Faerun. The struggle against her former allies, the resultant isolation and the cost of her magic drained the Winter Goddess, until she became so weak that she could be slain, even by mortals. an act which would banish her until her rebirth on the next winter's solstice. As a cold-hearted creature of vanity and capriciousness, concepts such as love, compassion, or mercy are alien to Auril. The only feeling close to affection that she might ever display is a deep, obsessive love for the beauty of snow, of ice, and of all things frozen. Some theorize that her desire to cover the world in frost and snow is simply to preserve and to hoard all beautiful things for her viewing pleasure alone. She takes great pleasure in torment, and she will mock a victim with visions of hearth, of home, and of loving comfort, even as she freezes them to death. To describe Auril's relationship with other deities is to mark a litany of grievances. While she was once cordial with Talos and united in the task of inspiring terror through destruction, secretly the Frost Maiden always despised the Lord of Destruction for his taking sole credit for whatever they wrought together. Malar she openly hated and did battle against, and though at one time she did get on well with Umberlee, her betrayal was enacted without any chance of reconciliation. Outside of the gods of fury, Auril is mortal enemies with Chauntea, the goddess of agriculture, and she is vigilant against the worshippers of Sune, the goddess of beauty, and Uthgar, the god of the Uthgard barbarians, who both have good cause to struggle against the Frost Maiden's encroach into their domains. Ever hungry for power, Auril seeks to devour the portfolios of Ulutiu, the sleeping god of the Arctic, of Eadrithania, the elven sky goddess who controls the weather, and of Grumsh, the patron of the orcs, and of Akadi, the primordial goddess of the air. In fact, the only thing close to a positive relationship in Lady Icekiss's recent history is that she once had a romantic affair with Thrym, the god of the frost giants, and they had a child together, whose name is Nalkara, of a race known as Empyrean, being the children of the gods. Auril's home lies within the chaotic plane of pandemonium, a realm of deafening howls caused by wind rushing through stone tunnels and of disorienting gravitational forces that pull one ever closer towards the center of the maddening realm. Auril is a lesser deity, and her neutral evil alignment speaks to her psychopathic nature. Her clerics tend to adopt the nature or the tempest domain, and in being as indifferent as she is to life as to undeath, she grants her clerics either the power to turn and to destroy undead, or the power to rebuke and to command undead, chosen once at character creation. Her favored weapon is a frozen spike of ice, wielded like a pickaxe, which is known as Ice Maiden's Caress, in whose imitation her divine casters train in the use of ice axes, tools for digging or for climbing on the ice, which, when modified for battle, will follow the rules for a battle axe. Her holy time is midnight, or indeed whenever the temperature drops to its coldest point. So, in order to pray for spells, many of her casters will camp out all night or bathe in frozen rivers. Her followers are known as Aurilians or Aurilites, whose number include many Eluscan barbarians, plus those whose locale or profession forces them to survive in the frozen wilderness, as well as some air and water genasi, and several clans of frost giants. Her appeasement demands sacrifices, which are often set adrift in an icy body of water and sometimes involve human sacrifice. Such devotional gifts are typically given out of fear and out of desperation. When she speaks to her followers, the Frost Maiden uses messengers of frost giants and of winter wolves. Her most holy day is midwinter, during which her followers engage in an all-night celebration of ice dancing, as a time for her followers to enjoy themselves and to lure others into their queen's service. Meanwhile, druids of all faiths pay begrudging respect to her on this day, and her priests and priestesses also hold informal gatherings on the 20th of Nital and the 18th of Ches, known as the Coming Storm and as the Last Storm, respectively, whereupon they celebrate the first and the last day of winter by summoning howling ice storms to ravage a region. Finally, in Waterdeep, common folk hold a festival known as Auril's Blessedtide or Auril's Day, on the first day of new frost for the year. Not quite a celebration, it is more of an attempt to appease Auril, to make the coming winter less severe. Her clergy are known as ice priests and as ice priestesses, and in order to join their order, an initiate must undergo a ritual known as the Embracing, requiring them to run all night through a blizzard, wearing only a thin chemise and boots along with Auril's holy symbol painted upon their body. Either they die, or they are saved by the goddess and rendered immune to the cold by her embrace. If they are successful, they will adopt clerical vestments of white with blue trim, and they identify themselves by an ice axe marked with the holy symbol of Auril, as well as a wide belt of silver plates and a silver circlet worn upon their brow. Most of her congregations are isolated, wild covens, and thus the majority of her ice priests and ice priestesses will take on the title of Hand of Auril or of Ice Breath. But wherever she has a formal temple structure, they will use the following ranks. An initiate is known as Postulant, before being confirmed as Votre, Icewind, and then the bulk of her clergy are known as Storm Brother or as Storm Sister, while senior priests are known as Frost Touch, as Lady or Lord Cold, as Lord or Lady Deep Winter, as Lord or Lady Cold Circle, and finally, High Hand of Ice. A healthy fear of Auril's wrath forms a major part of the culture of the North, and her followers are common in Vasa and within the inhospitable lands of the Great Glacier. She is also one of the major deities worshipped by the Northlanders of the Moonshae Isles, the homeland of the Eluskans. And finally, while her following is outlawed in the Moonsea, Aurilites nonetheless gather many faithful among the destitute and the homeless, offering them salvation from the harsh winters. Notable temples for her worship are the House of Auril's Breath in Glister, within the uncharted wilderness north of the Moonsea, as well as Icethorn's house south of Nashkel near Arm, the Towers of Fury in Kalimport, the capital of Kalimshan, the Winter Palace in Luskan on the northern edge of the Sword Coast, and finally, Ice Temple, located in the cold wilds of Icewind Dale. Though Auril would rather call down a massive snowstorm than rely upon mere mortals, she has a number of eclectic cults who pay her reverence, such as the cult of Frost, who are single-minded in their search for the Ring of Winter, a powerful magical artifact that gives the wielder immortality and power over the cold. While a coven of wizards known as the Frost Witches study ice magic and are rumored to hold the Codicil of White, a secret tome of Aurelian rites. And finally, a heretical sect of her followers are known as the Sisters of Istitia, who believe that Auril is in fact a servant of the primordial goddess of water, a claim which heterodox Aurilites consider a grave insult. In my world, the heretical faith of the Seven Divines believe that the retreat of the gods from the world domain, well, that was caused by an entity of such darkness and scale that it predates upon the gods themselves. They tell of how in her weakened state, Auril fell as easy prey into its yawning maw and was consumed. Thereafter, the domain over winter was taken by an emergent spiritual being named Azrai. Darkest among his kin, even the heretics balk at his worship, and some even claim that he is an aspect of the all-consuming darkness itself. In another world and in another life, he slew his brothers and sister deities, who were then reborn beside him as the race of godlike beings known as the Suras, taking the form of a black cat whose aloofness and grace he finds pleasing. Azrai amused himself by pretending to be other deities so as to cause their followers to betray their own values. Gradually, he developed a nihilistic yet devoted following who saw him as one who exposes hypocrisy, shatters egos, and forces the powerful to face the brutal truth of their own weakness. Until, in his arrogance, Azrai misled a cult of dread Tharizdun, the Chained Oblivion, unwittingly leading the cultists into even darker perversions. Attempting to awaken their mad god, his playthings somehow managed to punch a hole in the barrier erected by the gods to conceal the world from the darkness that they feared. And a tiny part of the God-Eater's formless being dripped onto the surface of the moon. In panic, Azrai slaughtered his feckless followers, rending their souls to ribbons that they might never be reborn or resurrected. Until, with few worshippers remaining, much like Auril before him, Azrai was rendered almost powerless. Perhaps it was guilt and the desire to conceal his crimes that drove the Dark Sura to perform this near-suicidal act. Or perhaps he felt, for the first time, the terror of being prey before a greater predator. But Azrai's divine brother and fellow Sura named Vorin, the Lord of Mysteries, managed to capture Azrai's fading powers and use them to fuel his own arcane schemes to deceive and ultimately to defeat the darkness. Returning to his brother Azrai but one power, the ability to destroy. Combined with Vorin's own dominion over creation, this forged an alliance of near-supreme capabilities. Now Azrai serves as Vorin's feline familiar, aiding him in vast and enigmatic plans to save the world from consumption into darkness. And inasmuch as the Lord of Mysteries may be known, Vorin seems to believe that his brother is capable of redemption. But who knows what deep dreams lie within the cold-slitted eyes of Azrai, the new Lord of Winter. The commandments passed down to her lowly, shivering followers by the Queen of Frozen Tears speak thusly. Work to cover all the lands of the world with snow and with ice. Extinguish fire and heat wherever it is to be found. Hack holes in walls, in roofs, and smash windows to let in the winds and the cold, which are the breath of the Frost Maiden. Drown the cursed sun in darkness, that the cold may bring death. Slay any creature at will, but take the life of an Arctic beast only at times of great need. Ensure that all people from all lands fear the Frost Maiden's coming. Sing reverent praises to the cold goddess into any chill wind or winter's breeze. And finally, never raise your hand against a cleric of Auril.